Season 5, Episode 8 of The Boys series finale review by me, Duncan Lievi. The format will be as follows. I'll do a beat-by-beat recap of what happened, followed by some mad rambling about unanswered questions and curiosities and sadnesses. Before everything, this might be a long video, and the second half will not have any chronology or any set logic to it in some ways, because it will be just my engagement with the show and some things that occur to me. There might be repetitions as well. Finales are difficult. Eric Kripke has reminded us of the same via his screenwriter Soup character, who metaphorically, well actually, literally, eats dirt and expels dirt. That is not some veiled insult toward the creators. I recognize that my engagement with the content has only come due to the beautiful world that they were able to build, and they have somehow maintained throughout the show's run. An underwhelming finale, which this is in many ways, does not deter that from being true. That said, let's start the beat by beat of this episode. The episode starts with the memorial service of Frenchie. This is poignant, at least in the beginning, until Huey starts reading from a letter where he's reading supposedly Frenchie's words, and the words essentially are, I am paraphrasing, "We are all family because I have seen all your assholes. And thank you, Kimiko, for saving me." That is essentially the message from the letter, and here we are trying to send off a fan-favorite character, whose death only hit to me after Kimiko started crying because it reminded me of the wholesome quality of their relationship. It's very underwhelming. It's like, why am I needing to insult my own connection to these two characters? For what, really? For, again, crass humor? And yes, the constant excuse for that is, yeah, of course that is The Boys, so they will have crass humor. It's just that the percentage of occurrences, of moments where crass humor is taking the time of proper storylines being furthered, is getting greater and greater. So frustrations would mount. There was no need for that. That was also not something that Frenchie would have said in the current circumstances, where he knows the fate of the world is at stake, people could die, Homelander is still alive, all those things. So just not a fan of that. Kimiko was, again, acting her heart out in this, at least the actress was. She has stopped talking again, probably a trauma response to losing Frenchie. There's still a question mark regarding whether Kimiko can actually zap another Soup's powers via chest blast. To test that, Sister Sage enters the fray and makes some very diabolical insinuations, saying that Kimiko only kept Frenchie around because she enjoyed the attention, because she got off on Frenchie's servitude, I'm still paraphrasing, and that she kept him on a leash, and the moment it seemed that Frenchie would go away, she slept with him to keep him around. So these inflammatory words sent Kimiko off the deep end, and she actually managed to conjure up a chest blast beam, which took away the powers of Sister Sage. This confirmed that Kimiko actually can take away the powers of a Soup, and that also told us that Sister Sage does not have her powers, which means we will never get to know her true plan. And I do not mean that she wants to be alone and read forever. That is not befitting of the prime intellect on Earth. I was hoping for some other underlying plan which would be far greater a part of the central conflict, which might make the difference in giving the edge to the heroes after Sister Sage joined the Boys. Unfortunately, now the writers can say, well, she got blasted, so she has no powers anymore. Sorry, we will not deliver that to you. Just sad all around. Anyway, the next part of the plan is the approach. How are they going to actually get into the White House? Because that is a place and time for Homelander addressing the nation. So they have to find a way to be there, to actually be there. Now, wouldn't you know it, MM has the perfect plan. He has blueprints, combinations, codes for the tunnels that run up right into the White House, as luck would have it. So that is how they will actually go there. Now, this is where we go to two characters, the first being Ryan, who has been hiding out, I think, in New Zealand, but I'm not sure. Homelander pays a visit, says, "You are the son of God, Ryan. You should come back. You can have a whole floor to yourself at the Vought Tower. Do whatever you want." Ryan answers with no and says the same thing that has become meaningless in the show, that no matter how much power Homelander accrues, collects, it will never be enough. Of course, Homelander says, "You don't understand what's really going on." He does not get affected by these words and just flies away. Back at the tower, we see preparations for how the churches of Homelander will be built unsuccessfully. That plan is not going too well. The Deep reemerges and offers to be the enforcer for Homelander after the Seven was disbanded last episode. The Deep is without purpose as well. Homelander says no to that. Homelander tells the Deep, well, we all have known all these years that he does not respect the Deep at all. And the only reason he does not kill the Deep is because he wants the Deep to feel his own worthlessness. Cuts deep, no pun intended, and yet there is nothing that stirs the Deep up. That there's no backbone in the character, apparently. Then we go back to the boys trying to get into the White House. Finally, we have a scenario where logically we have a new development. They're actually walking into a trap. All this time, President Ashley, has been trying to subtly plant seeds of doubt in the mind of O-Father. Subtly, though. Not blatantly, because then she'll be outed as a non-believer, and then she will be lasered too. She has been unsuccessful, which is a point for me to make toward O-Father. O-Father is a very compelling character. He used to be loyal to something, got disillusioned, placed his faith in something else. He's learning to believe again, and like a self-fulfilling prophecy, he wants other people to believe, and he is sad because that is not happening. But do we have time to explore that? No, have to rush everything. Is the finale, no season 6, forget about that. Okay, so Ashley is the difference maker, which is great. She, like Sister Sage, wants to get out of the show alive, and she does that after making a heroic turn. She goes to the tunnels and opens the door to allow the boys' team to get into the White House. This means Annie, Kimiko, Huey, MM, and Butcher are in the White House. Then we go into a few segments. Annie and the Deep have their own little storyline, where the Deep identifies Annie as the sole reason or the source of his downfall. He believes before Annie became part of the Seven, he had power, he had respect. Maybe that's some retroactive storytelling by the Deep to himself, which is not really accurate, but at least he is sticking to his guns. Annie tries to save him, and he tries to keep making sense to him, trying to make him grow a backbone, to turn his back on Homelander finally, and he wouldn't listen. They fight, and he wins. She sends him into the water, where the fishes, or fishies, or, well, Samuel L. Jackson's character's friends take revenge on the Deep for the end of Ambrosia, if that was her name, the Deep's ex-lover, whom he actually murdered. And also as a comeuppance for the oil pipeline disaster which led to the deaths of millions, if not billions, of fish. So that's at least a cohesive end to the Deep's arc. Right, Annie's also surprised by this. She did not know the background, so she was surprised to see that the fish actually killed the Deep. Sad, sad, sad. Well, you know, at least that's a satisfactory end. The second section of the White House infiltration is being led by Huey, Butcher, Kimiko, and MM to allow Butcher and Kimiko access into the Oval Office. Huey shoots the smoke emitters in the room, creating the fog. No one can see anything, and Huey and MM then take care of O-Father. O-Father is about to kill Huey. Huey tries to shoot him. That never works. And MM takes what do you call it, ball gag, and puts it around O-Father's mouth. O-Father does his sonic blast. The effect is reversed. O-Father's head explodes. Goodbye, O-Father. So we've now seen swift exits, sometimes alive, sometimes dead, of Sister Sage, alive. Ashley, after helping the boys, rushes away, alive. Deep, taken down by fish, dead. Oh Father, explodes his own head, dead. Also of note, none of the people in the security of the White House, namely the Supes who were setting the trap in the tunnels, were back to help Homelander. What was that? Also, there are people who are watching Homelander's address to the people where Homelander anoints himself the second coming or the first coming, Jesus God, Jesus' brother, we don't know. And the mind readers are checking the responses of the people. So far, this is happening, this makes sense, this is following up from last week. However, there will be a puzzling turn to this as time goes by. Finally, we have Butcher in the Oval Office. He comes in with his signature style. We have Kimiko in the office too. Homelander goes off script in his address to the people and lays it out bare. In no uncertain terms, he says to the people, "You will either believe in me, worship me, or I will burn you." That is his message. And then we have the confrontation. With the cameras still on, the three fight. Kimiko is having trouble concentrating, getting angry enough. She's trying to recreate the conditions which led her to blast Sister Sage, and she's unable to do so. Meanwhile, Butcher is finding it difficult to individually keep down Homelander, V1 Homelander, which is supposed to be a overpowered version, and yet, other than immortality, we have no other evidence to believe that he is actually stronger. Last episode, the radiation that Frenchie exposed him to had less effect on Homelander than previously seen in the case of Soldier Boy. Soldier Boy's plan to expose Homelander to radiation, we see that Homelander has a lesser of an effect, less effect compared to that, and yet there is no significant uptake in power. So we're not sure why Homelander cannot easily overpower Kimiko and Butcher. Kimiko is having trouble delivering the blast. Butcher a couple of times asks her, "What are you waiting for?" He's unaware of the conflict in her mind. Ultimately, Ryan arrives to help these people, which is again continuing the first scene of this episode. Kimiko is still trying to blast Homelander, and Homelander soon recognizes that it is better to bolt, because now there are three Supes. He tries to fly, and that is where Ryan intervenes. Then, while Ryan and Butcher have held down Homelander, Frenchie comes to Kimiko in a dream sequence, or in a daydream sequence. He reminds her that her strength comes from within, that rage is not her superpower, and she's able to finally zap all three, Ryan, Homelander, Butcher, taking away the powers of all three, while subduing herself in the process due to the energy drain. Now, Butcher is the most powerful figure in the entire scene. He beats down Homelander in the name of Frenchie, punches, haymakers, kicks. Homelander is down, begging to be spared. He offers, typical boy, so he offers fellatio, he offers Vought and the company and everything that does, and he also offers a shape-shifted version of Becca as some leverage to stay alive. Butcher obviously refuses. In the name of Frenchie, he beat Homelander down. Then in the name of Becca, he drove a crowbar straight into Homelander's forehead, his skull, and pried it open in classic boys fashion. I suppose a lot of the viewing audience experienced a lot of catharsis in that moment. This is what they had been waiting for. So in that sense, the emotional beats have been hit very admirably. After this climactic confrontation, the boys are probably about to go their different ways when Butcher offers Ryan a fresh start with him and Terror. Ryan makes it clear that he did not choose Homelander, that he did not choose Butcher over Homelander. He also makes it clear that he does not believe Butcher to be a good person. He refuses Butcher's offer, making Butcher sad. Butcher then finds Terror. He believes Terror is still around, and for reasons unbeknownst to us, we don't know what is going on. Terror was alive for Frenchie's memorial earlier in the episode, and yet something happened in the middle where Terror is now dead. This sends Butcher completely over the moral line. He has no heart thematically. Butcher was seeing some humanity in himself because of Terror, because of his connection with Terror. With Terror gone, Butcher takes the soup virus with him and goes to Vought Tower, only to be seen by good old Huey. Now, there are many gripes that I have with this particular sequence. I'll just tell you what goes on majorly. Butcher wants to spread that virus to kill all soups everywhere because he believes soups are done and no one can stop him. Huey has brought his gun. He says no. I think he also thinks of Annie, Kimiko, and just general fairness. Why should all soups die just because Homelander was so bad? Unable to convince Butcher, Huey takes out his gun. They have a brawl. Butcher obviously comes out on top. He is about to flip the switch and release the virus. He hesitates because he sees Lenny, Butcher's own younger brother, in Huey. He hesitates, and Huey does not hesitate. He shoots Butcher and ends up killing Butcher. Then we cut to the funeral of Butcher, Billy Butcher. It's far less sappy, and thankfully also less on the crass humor. And they send off Butcher with smiles, and they go their separate ways. I will quickly summarize the character fates now. Kimiko travels to Marseille, France, to honor Frenchie. Ryan rejects Butcher and leaves with MM. MM reunites with his family. And I think there's some insinuation that Ryan is going to be with MM's family, like an adoption or something. I don't know, not for sure. Huey and Annie get the ending that I would have preferred to see Kimiko and Frenchie get, and yet they rush off. They kiss where Huey lost Robin. So Robin was featured in the first episode of the show and in the last episode of the show. Not the same character. They have maybe aptly called their about-to-be-born daughter Robin. And Robin returning is not a phrase I believed I would say in a show that is not connected to Batman. Ashley was referenced later in the TV sequence, so news of the show, saying that she got impeached, and that is it. So she's still around. Instead of her, Bobby Singer became the president of the United States. He offers Huey a place on the Soup Affairs Board or Bureau, which Huey rejects because he's now starting his own entrepreneurial endeavor. Audiovisual, Campbell Huey Audiovisual, or just audiovisual. And that is that. I think I'm missing out on someone. Yeah, Sister Sage also exited the show, which I've already mentioned. So that is essentially the beat by beat of the boys' finale. Now, I suppose I have more freedom now because I will be rattling off all of the reasons and the things that I found to be strange, especially that send-off that Billy Butcher got. So this episode had no mention of Soldier Boy. Soldier Boy's powers were a direct result or a difference maker in the finale, because Kimiko got those powers and depowered Homelander Ryan Butcher, and yet we have no mention or visual of Soldier Boy. Soldier Boy's role has been basically a plot contrivance in this season. He comes out of the ice chamber to build up his prequel show. He gives V1 to Homelander, which has no real effect in my eyes. I mean, he just got immortal, just changed his personality, and yet he did not increase Homelander's powers or anything really substantial. And then Soldier Boy just got tucked right back into his chamber, only to not engage in the finale. So I am kind of happy that he's alive, because then I see seeds of what will happen in the coming time. Stan Edgar gets back to being interim CEO of Vought. And of course, with the Soldier Boy still around, Vought can rebuild. This would be a payoff to Stan Edgar's own corporations will grow line to MM. So he will continue his work. I will probably tie that into something else that I will reference soon enough. Now, the biggest gripe that I have with this finale. So when Huey saw Butcher set off with that soup virus, Huey decided that the best course of action would be to go alone. He did not think to tell Annie, or Kimiko, or even MM. MM has history with Butcher. He can dissuade Butcher from doing something impulsive, that is, killing all soups via the virus. He did not think to tell Starlight. He did not think to tell Kimiko, both of whom could at least put Butcher in some isolation chamber where he could cool off. He could discuss his gripes again. No, but Butcher, having experienced sadness from rejection via Ryan and then the death of Terror, can only respond impulsively, which is in character for him. And yet my only gripe is, why did Huey decide to go alone? He has two souped up friends who can help prevent this ultimate action, which puts Huey's own girlfriend at risk, not to mention Kimiko and all the other soups in existence. Butcher, while impulsive, still makes a great point. If we let these superheroes be, another Homelander will eventually come. He makes it clear that he is against superheroes and what they can become. The real moral dilemma which could be explored was, how does Butcher manage to make some change without coming off as psychotic? Or how can his team help him achieve that? Vought could engineer another superpowered soup. They could just revive Soldier Boy and have another go at it. That could be another thread that could be explored, and yet was not. It was only shut off because, oh, Butcher has gone off the deep end, he's lost control, and that's it. That's it. They just don't explore that. Like, is there a follow-up? Is there a comic that I can read to get some answers to that? It's very, very underwhelming. The death was forced. Butcher's death was forced, and if they really wanted to kill off Butcher, there are other ways to accomplish that. Random mentions of Stormfront this season were annoying because it again made it seem that half of the purpose of this season was to set up the prequel show. Noir 1 and 2 dying completely pointlessly, while being heralded as very, very powerful soups, can fly, can do this, is almost as powerful as Homelander, and yet killed off by the Deep via knife stab to the throat? What? He didn't even try to fly? And the first Noir, horribly traumatized, seeing cartoons, cannot express himself, and killed by Homelander via arm to the chest, through the chest. It's just sad to see such a mysterious from the first season character not being given proper screen time. And, of course, the overuse of crass humor when you only have 8 episodes. This seemed more like a case of this season should have 15 episodes, and then you could have time for these crass scenes which took away screen time from actual meaningful dialogue and moments and other build-up, which they apparently care about. The other annoying aspect is the overarching fluctuation of power levels. As I've already mentioned with Noir, the same thing can be said for Mr. Marathon. If he was such a great speedster, how could he not avoid the same mistake again and again? He apparently killed how many people? I think at least 5 people in that Seth Rogen episode, which was also the Supernatural reunion episode. And yet he has no control over his powers. A-Train only had that happen 1 time in his whole run. And we saw that happen 5 times in one episode for Mr. Marathon, who was the A-Train before the A-Train. Very, very bizarre. And how did Terror die? How did Terror die? It clearly had a very important role in the plot to set Butcher off in this direction of losing control and wanting all soups dead, finally resulting in his death. When did Terror die? What happened to him? And even what's his name? Huey. Like, sorry, buddy. That's his reaction to Terror dying. What was the reaction of MM, of Starlight, of Kimiko to the death of Butcher? Definitely MM's reaction would be poignant. Too much of important things happening in the background, off-screen, which Sage's grand plan was never answered. Soldier Boy being involved with Crimson Countess in the beginning and then suddenly pivoting to being completely head over heels in love with Stormfront, and that being the reason why he willingly gives the V1 to Homelander. Again, pointless. Build up to it properly, or at least justify the choice. Meaning, okay, so he was with Crimson Countess for a long time, and before that he was with Stormfront, or he was just the kind of person who would be completely happy with having a girl on the side, and at the same time he'd be with someone, aka with Stormfront, and having the affair with Crimson Countess. So Crimson Countess turned him in, or contributing to his being locked away. He comes back, takes vengeance on her, and he's still in love with Stormfront. At least make it make sense. Oh, and a huge gripe. Gen V characters. Marie Moreau, why did you bring her in if you were not going to use her for the finale? If you introduce her to the show, you introduce a character who has a lot of powers. She could bend blood. She has brought people back from death. She could easily manipulate the V out of Homelander's blood. So you have in your arsenal this amazing superhero who could tilt the scales or completely obliterate the scales in your favor, and you bring her in. Either don't bring her in, don't introduce her to the zeitgeist of your show or the world of your show directly, even though she's part of the universe. You don't have to make her part of the storyline. And if you do involve her, why aren't you deploying her in the best way you can? Why are you giving her duty to save people? What does that even mean? What is she doing that is saving people? Is she making them immune? Is she giving them immortality? What is she doing to help the people? Just escorting people? It's like having a gun and not using it in a shootout. Why would you do that? It's very, very senseless. So I think I'll wrap the gripes here. There are some other things. How did they find Stan Edgar? What state was he found in? And with all the negative press regarding Vought, how did he so easily find himself again as the interim CEO? What happened to Stan Edgar's granddaughter, Victoria Newman's daughter? Where is she? She was seen one time defending her grandfather, and then we never see her again. Maeve was referenced, and Maeve did not make an appearance. Full circle arc for Annie, where she became disillusioned just like Maeve was, and Annie was able to find her moral anchor via Marie Moreau, a short conversation with Marie Moreau earlier in the episode. One way to address legitimate concerns of Billy Butcher would have been that they actually deprive Stan Edgar from returning to Vought. They dismantle Vought from inside, because Butcher is concerned that superheroes will always be some way to misuse power, because the wrong kind of superheroes with the wrong kind of values, like Homelander, can always be generated like Vought was able to generate. So instead of removing and killing all supes, maybe at least in the scope of the show, they could eliminate Vought. They could remove Stan Edgar from power as a way to address his concerns. And that could be something that wiser or people with more patience toward the goal, like MM, could influence the emotional and traumatized Butcher. Also, Butcher did not receive any credit for his amazing will, which ultimately led him to being successful. He actually took down Homelander until Butcher passed away. I thought that was kind of poetic for his character, because a lot of people always look down on him for his subhuman qualities or extreme violent tendencies or at all costs approach. And yet when it came to how the job was done, ultimately it was always Butcher who came up with a plan. He actually delivered. He never lost hope, even when Huey lost hope. The people with everything invested into it, Butcher was always focused, and he was the driving force for the main plot of the show. I have the greatest of respect for the way Butcher's motivations have been represented. One of the rare gems where Butcher's consistency in character has always been there. So that wraps up my overall analysis and engagement with the boys. However, I believe this is only a midpoint. The prequel is already announced. Soldier Boy is still alive. He and Annie, Huey, Kimiko can easily be roped in for a sequel. Boys Mexico is already being considered. Who knows if this is it for the VCU? Most likely it is not. So whenever it comes back, we'll see. And until then, I'm grateful that this universe exists. Kudos to the creators and the actors and the people behind the scenes for crafting a show that has been immensely successful. No matter what the gripes are, it cannot take away from the fact that this show got more than 50 million viewers in the final season. So it is not devoid of interest, not devoid of success. This is an amazingly profitable, amazingly successful show, which can never be ignored. And for all the highs and lows, thank you for the journey to the creators and performers of The Boys. Thank you. This is Duncan Lievi. Until next time.